Christopher Hitchens, who actually was on Econ Talk at least once, famously said the most selfish person he'd ever heard of was Mother Teresa. Wait, how can that be? And the answer is Mother Teresa was only motivated by her preference to help the poor. Famously, she would sometimes show up at a village. And of course, Mother Teresa was a world-class figure. They were very excited. Mother Teresa's coming. We're going to put her up in a room in our house, and we're going to make a nice dinner for her. And she would get there and say, no, I am not staying in that room. I'm going to stay on the street with my people. And I'm not eating this food. I'm only going to eat what the people in the village will eat. And of course, this was a great disappointment to her hosts. But she only wanted to maximize her own goals, her own preferences. So when you say economists think people are selfish, that's true, but only if you think Mother Teresa was selfish because she was acting in accordance with her own preferences and goals. So that's the way that economists think about preferences. I caricatured this in my little article saying, and this actually is something that Doug North always would do when I was in graduate school, and he was also making fun of economists. And making fun is wrong. He was using a reductio ad absurdum. So the logical approach of a reductio ad absurdum. You take the logic of this and show if you carry it to its extreme, it gives you something ridiculous. There's no reason in principle that we could not have a theory of preference, choice, and acquisition, and there's no reason if it's an economic one, it wouldn't be rational. So I tell the story of I'm in the mall, and for younger people, malls used to be these big collections of stores that people would go to. I realize that they don't exist anymore, but once upon a time, there were these things called malls. And so there's a number of stores there, and I see one of them, the preference store. And I think, oh, that's right. My wife, Donna, told me we're completely out of preferences at home. I should pick some up if I see it in the mall. Thank goodness I saw this. So I walk in, and in the store, there are all sorts of different preference orders. And those really what preferences are is I like A better than B better than C, or I like B better than C better than A. So let's suppose that two of the things that I care about are bologna and caviar. Now, which one of those should I like better? Notice I'm not asking which one do I like better. I'm saying which one rationally should I like better. Clearly, I should like bologna better than I should like caviar. It's much cheaper. Now, it could be that there are both income and price effects in acquiring preferences. If I have enough money, I can afford more expensive preferences. If the price of something goes up, I might want to cultivate a preference for something else. And of course, in the back of the room there, you have to show an ID to even think about those sorts of preferences. Outside, there's a guy in the alley saying, psst, you want some of these? There's a whole different set of preferences that are completely morally or legally proscribed. The point is that that example is incoherent in the way economists usually think of it, because we tend not to think that people have preferences over preferences. Preferences, as you talked about in the podcast recently with McCulloch, we just think of preferences being subjectively what they are, and that's it. And the biggest restriction we're going to place on them is that they're relatively fixed. And that, as Becker and Stigler explained, it's not because we actually think preferences are fixed, but because invoking preference change is the first stage in an explanation. You could explain anything, but well, preferences change. So mostly we're going to say preferences are fixed. We're going to use economic parameters like price and income change to explain changes in purchases. And that's what economics is in a nutshell. That's the maximization paradigm that economics is that we use preferences that way. My question is, for much of human history, and certainly from Aristotle onward, the idea that some preferences are better than others has been a big part of every aspect of social life except economics.
Well, you paused there, suggesting I might say something. It's very kind of you. I think, let the record show, I think this is the longest period that Mike Munger's ever spoken on Econ Talk without being interrupted by the host. It's not a record it's not something I'm proud of, but I think that's true. I challenge listeners to verify that if they feel like it.